Welcome to Dinesh QL. My name is Dinesh Priyankara, Data Platform MVP and Business Intelligence Architect. This video focuses on connecting to Power BI desktop model using SQL Server Management Studio. Now, why I thought to make a video on this? There are two reasons. One reason is when I check with my students, when I check with my colleagues and other professionals, this connectivity or connecting to Power BI desktop model using SQL Server Management Studio is unknown to many. Many do not know that we can actually connect to Power BI desktop model using SQL Server Management Studio. The other reason is recently I was trying to download a certain number of records from one of the visuals that have been added to my Power BI report, and then I realized that it doesn't download everything because of one of the limitations. So generally Power BI desktop model does not allow you to download everything if you use a menu item which is called as export to CSV through your visual. So I was struggling to download that data set. Yes, there are some other ways of downloading data set from your Power BI desktop model, but when I connect to my Power BI desktop model using Management Studio, I was able to download all my records without struggling much. So those are the two reasons for making a video like this. Let me take you through the agenda. First, let's try to understand the way of making these connections. What sort of things we need to find, what sort of things we need to understand, and how do we configure the connection string, and how to make this connection. So that's the first part. So once we have connected with Power BI desktop model, what sort of operation actually we can run? Can I do everything I have been doing with Power BI desktop, or it is limited? So let's see whether this really gives us some benefits. So that's going to be the second part. So once the discussion is done, let me take you through the demonstration. So let me show you the way of collecting information required for making or opening Power BI desktop model using SQL Server Management Studio. And then let me show you how to do certain operations, including exporting a large number of records from your Power BI model into CSV file. Okay, how do we make the connection? How can I open Power BI desktop model from SQL Server Management Studio? For that, we need to collect certain information. Now, in order to collect this information, we need to understand the process. When you open Power BI desktop, we know that it actually uses certain components related to Microsoft SQL Server Analysis Services. So we need to find that the analysis services instance that have been created for your Power BI desktop model. If you make a search for a file called msmdsrv.exe, that's the executable file, that's what Power BI uses for creating a local instance of analysis services. So when you create a Power BI file, it creates a new instance of analysis services using that file. So we need to find that instance. All these instances have a port attached to it. So basically it creates a random port, and that's the port it uses for communication. So you need to know the port number in order to connect with this analysis services local instance that has been created for your Power BI desktop model. So how do I find the port? There are multiple ways of finding this port number. Generally, you can use one of these methods. For example, you can use the command prompt. If you use a command prompt for finding the port, you have to use a command called netstat. But in order to find the port using this netstat, you need to pass the process ID. The process ID related to your local analysis services instance that have been created for Power BI desktop. So how do you find it? You can easily find it using Task Manager, which is in the Windows, or there are some other ways of finding this process ID. I'll show you the way of finding the process ID using the Task Manager, and then we can use this process ID with command prompt for finding the port number. Second one is whenever you open a Power BI desktop, as I told you, it creates a instance of analysis services. So as a part of that creation, it creates certain number of files in your local machine. It's going to be a temporary folder. So you need to go into that temporary folder, and that folder has a specific file. So that file contains the port number. What you have to remember is that that folder will be automatically deleted whenever you close the Power BI file. So it's a temporary folder. So if you open this msm.dsrv.port.txt file, you can find the port. Or else, if you have installed DAX Studio, which is an open source tool which can be used for connecting with models and executing commands like DAX commands, you can easily find the port number. Whenever you open DAX Studio connecting to your Power BI desktop model, it basically shows the port number. So these are the three ways of finding the random port that has been created for your local analysis services instance. So once you have the port number, the connection string for connecting with Power BI desktop model goes as localhost.port. For example, let's say your port number is 1234, then what you have to type in the server name is localhost.1234. So then you can connect with it and work with it. So this is how you make the connection. What sort of things I can do once I have connected to my Power BI model using SQL Server Management Studio, or what sort of benefits I really see? One main thing I can see is the monitoring part. If I want to understand what sort of operations are being done inside my Power BI model, whenever I open a visual, whenever I do some filtering, grouping, aggregation, I want to see. So I can simply use Management Studio along with the profiler to understand what sort of operations are being done. Second, the important thing is the performance tuning. If I want to improve the performance of, for example, let's say I have used direct query for getting data into my Power BI model. So whenever I open the visual, it connects to the data source and executes certain number of queries in order to get the data for my visual. I want to check and see whether these queries are optimized or not, or I want to see how these queries are constructed by Power BI model, and whether these constructed queries are fully optimized, or whether I need some additional indexes, or whether I need to add stored procedures, things like that. So I can use this technique for performance tuning. If I want to browse my model just like the way I've been browsing models with analysis services, I can simply use Management Studio. Once I have made the connection, I can find a menu item called browse, and then I can browse my model. So just like the way it shows analysis services model, I can see KPIs, I can see measures, I can see my dimensions. I can drag and drop to the canvas, and then I can visualize information based on the way I construct the query. So that's also another benefit. In addition to that, we can simply export data into CSV file, or just copy data as you want and put it to CSV or whatever the container you want using this technique. That is where I see the real usage of this, but you can actually use SQL Server Management Studio for all the things we just discussed with this slide. Now we have been discussing Power BI desktop model. Can we really connect to Power BI service using Management Studio? Yes, it is possible, but we are not going to focus on that part. I'll do another video on that, how to connect to Power BI service using SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, so we have discussed everything. Now it is time for the demonstration. So let me show you how to find the local instance and how to find the port number of that instance using the ways we discussed, and then connect to the model using, or connect to the model from SQL Server Management Studio. And then let's test the connectivity by executing certain DAX queries. And let me show you how to download the records from Power BI model using Management Studio. Let me start with this folder. As I told you, whenever you create a Power BI file, it creates a temporary folder for maintaining certain number of files. Those files are related to the local instance of analysis services that have been created for your Power BI file. So how do you find the folder? You just go to users folder and then locate your account, and then inside that you should see the path like Microsoft, Power BI Desktop Store App, and Analysis Services Workspaces. Let me open a new Power BI file, and you should see a new folder is getting created inside this folder. I'm creating a new Power BI file, And you can see that it created a new folder called Analysis Services Workspace with some numbers starting from 173. Okay, I have the file open. Let me go back to the folder. If I open the folder just created, which is this, I can see another folder called data inside that folder. Let me go into data, and now you can see the file we look for, which is msmdsrv.port.txt. If I open this file, I can see the port. So this is the port I have to use. How do I use this port? I can simply type localhost colon 5500 and 5. So let's try to connect to this Power BI file using Management Studio. Let me open the Management Studio. Okay, this is my Management Studio. I'm going to click on Connect and Analysis Services. So all I have to do is type localhost colon and the port. So my port is 55005. Let me connect and see. Done. Let me expand databases. I can see the model. This is the model. If I expand the model, I can see connections that have been used, tables that have been used, and the roles. Now in this case, what we have is a blank Power BI file. So we don't see anything. So no connection, no tables, and no roles. Let me open a new Power BI file which has been already loaded with certain number of records. Okay, this is my second Power BI file. This file has been created based on AdventureWorks database. As you see, you can see order header, order detail tables. In addition to that, I have created dates table, which is something like this. This is not from the data source. This is something that has been created inside the model, and it has one page with this column chart and the slicer. That's all we have. Now we have two Power BI files open in my desktop. Let me go to the folder and see. Let me go back. Now I can see a new folder. So this is the folder created for my second Power BI file. Let me go into this and go into data and open this text file. I can see the port number as 55051. Let me copy this and connect to this port using Management Studio. Connect Analysis Services. This time port number is this. Connected. Let me expand databases. I can see the model and I can see connections. I can see my table plus some internal tables. These are the tables like product, category, subcategory, order header, and detail. Those tables have been loaded from AdventureWorks, and this is the date table which has been created inside the Power BI model. And if I expand roles, I don't see any roles. So this is how you find the port number using the file that have been created inside the temp folder, and then use that for connecting from Management Studio. Now before we do certain operation, let's see how we can actually find the process ID of this instance and the port number from the command prompt. For that, you need to open the task manager. So let me open the task manager. So when you open the task manager, you should see Power BI desktop with this, but it's a bit difficult to find the process ID from this window. What you have to do is you go into details and then find your Power BI instances. So I can see two because we have opened two Power BI files, and you can see PID is the process ID. So one is 18652, other one is 20008. So let me make a note on one, which is 18652, and use a netstat command for finding the port number. Let me open the command prompt. So when you open the command prompt, make sure that you use this run as administrator. Okay, so we have the process ID, and I'm going to type the command, which is netstat. You need to have this switch ANO, and then you have to use this parameter, which is find string. It goes as FINDSTR, and then type the process ID 18652. That's my process ID, in case with double quotes. Now when you execute this, you can see the port number, which is 55051. So this is the port number for second instance of your analysis services, uh, which has been created for your Power BI second file. So this is how you find the port number using netstat command. The third method we discuss is DAX Studio. I don't have DAX Studio installed, but you can download it. It's an open source tool, so you don't need to pay. You can download and install. You can use DAX Studio for various operation related to your Power BI. Okay, what sort of things we can do with this connectivity? Let me go back to my Management Studio. As I told you, I can browse my model. I can simply right click on the model and select browse, and then I can expand. For example, let me expand measures. I can see a measure called sales. Let me drag and drop to this canvas. I want to analyze measure by, for example, year. I can drag and drop. Let me click execute, so I can see the result. So just like the way you have been analyzing your analysis services model, you can analyze your Power BI desktop model using Management Studio. So that's one of the usages. The other thing is you can actually execute DAX queries. So you can right click on this new query, MDX DAX XMLA. So let me select DAX. I can simply type something like evaluate, and then I can type, or I can pick from the list. Let me click on tables. Let me take something like sales order header and then execute. So I get the result. I can extend this. For example, I can say order by and column. Let me pick something like due date and execute. So it works. So you can actually go through your data set using evaluate, but can I create objects? Can I create a measure? Can I create a calculated column? As you see, we don't have any facilities for doing something like that. This is all about browsing. But since the roles element has been given, we can actually create roles inside Power BI file. So let me go back to my Power BI file and check and see whether I have any roles with this. So if I go to modeling, I can see manage roles. If I click on it, I can see the interface, but we don't have any roles created with this Power BI file. So let me close it and let me go back to the Management Studio. Right click on roles, new role. So I'm going to name this as test role, and it's going to be read. And I can add members if I want, but you know that basically members have to be added through Power BI services. So because of that, let me go into row filters. I'm going to add something to let's say category. So let me click here and category. So I know that product category has a column called name. So I'm going to say name equal bikes. That's a condition. Let me click OK. And then let me go back to my Power BI and see whether this role is exists. Let me click on manage roles. I can see the role and it has been created using the condition I have added. So if I want to create a role, I can use Management Studio, or if you do not like to use Management Studio, of course you can continue with the Power BI desktop. Now let me open another Power BI file and show you the exporting part. Okay, so this is one of my Power BI files that have been created for COVID-19 experiments, and this visual contained records from a table called forecast. It has a large number of records. Just to see the records, you can see the starting date is 2020 May 29. If I click on this for getting it sorted in descending manner, you can see the date. The highest date is 2021 December 31st. So this is the data set I have. Let me click on this again to get it sorted in ascending order. Right. So if I want to get the entire data set downloaded, what we generally do is we click on this ellipsis button and select this export data. Let me click on it, and you might get a message saying it is data set is too large to be exported. Let's see. So yes, it says data exceeds the limit, but let me continue. and I'm going to save this into my desktop, and let me replace this file, which is data.csv. Okay, file is saved. Let me open the file. Okay, so this is the data set. In order to find whether all records have been exported or not, easiest way is let's convert this data set as a table. Click on insert table and click OK. Right, let me expand this column a little bit. Right, so I can see the starting date is 2020 May 29. Let me get it ordered from largest to smallest. Now I can see the largest one is 2020 October 8. So this has loaded only records up to October 8. If I go to the last record, I can see the number is 30,001, which means it has loaded only 30,000 records. That's anyway a limit with Power BI desktop. We have no way of expanding it, or we have no way of increasing it. Now let's try to get the same using Management Studio. Now we know that this is a new Power BI file, so we need to find the port related to local analysis service instance created for this Power BI file. Okay, I'm in my workspaces folder, and I can see this folder and go into data. Let me open the text file. It is 55208. That's a port number. Let me copy it. Let me go to Management Studio, collapse this, and then connect analysis services. And this is the new port number. Connect. All good. Let me expand databases. I can see one model. Let me expand it, and let me expand tables. I can see my table. So what I'm going to go is I'm going to create a new query window, which is DAX window, and I'm going to say evaluate, and I'm going to take forecast. Let me execute. I have the result. I'm going to copy everything. Let me go into my Excel, create a new sheet, paste. Let me convert it as a table. I can see the smallest date is May 29, 2020. Let me get it sorted to newest to oldest. I can see December 31st, 2021. Let me scroll down and see the number of records. I can see somewhere around 131,532 records. So this clearly says that it can download all the records from my model without limiting to a certain number of records. Okay, so we check everything. You notice how to connect to Power BI desktop file using Management Studio, and how to execute certain limited DAX queries against your model inside the Management Studio. And I showed you the way of downloading records from your Power BI model using Management Studio. So those are some of the operations or the benefits you can see with this type of connectivity. Okay, so that's all we have. I'll be creating another video related to Power BI services as well. And if you have any question, just put a comment. I'll respond to it whenever time permits. Thanks for watching.